We do see your screen, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Um, so hi everybody. Happy that Julian asked me to come for this series, talking about my favorite topic, which is digital empathy. So we're gonna share together and look at it, and I'm looking forward to your feedback and question and discussion. Um, so to begin, I have some different things to share with you. So first of all, my name is Yonty Friesem. I'm originally from Israel. I went to the States 13 years ago to do my PhD. I use pronouns they, them. And I'm now the executive director of the Media Education Lab, but I was a student there. And as I progress as kind of in the ranks, and you can see the different work that I did. So thanks to Julian, we did the Routledge Handbook of Media Education Futures Post-Pandemic. That was 3 years ago during the pandemic to kind of capture media education. During that time, I'm part of the UNESCO Meal Alliance International Steering Committee. And I, in the summer, shared some of the work that we're doing in Finland in a media literacy conference. So as you can see, I'm very much immersed into the media literacy community. But my specific interest within media literacy is about social and emotional learning and how to really help people to develop that, and especially emphasis on empathy. So let's delve into starting with my definition of what is digital empathy, because I published about it, I talk about it, but people are like, what is that? And as we'll see, this definition is still not helpful enough to understand what I'm talking about. So for me, digital empathy is the cognitive and emotional ability to be reflective and socially responsible while strategically using digital media. And I'm going to give you a lot of different case studies so that we can kind of discuss and look and compare between them into like, is that really coming as digital empathy, while some people do claim that? So I want to go to the pandemic and show like three different examples specifically from the pandemic that were different ways that people refer to like empathy. So there is the hand of God on the left, um, which was not a digital empathy, but the sharing was digital on Twitter. But back then it was Twitter. Um, because of the lack of human contact or the quarantine, people who were in intensive care, that was a way to take like two basically rubber gloves and put some water, warm water, and give like some comfort as if you're like holding somebody's hand. Which some people might describe it as empathy, some people might not. You can see on the right, people seeing each other, but with like a window to be able to communicate. And of course, like most of us, we were on Zoom, like we're right now, right? And there are different ways to empathize on Zoom, and I'll get back to that in my last slide to this. One of the interesting things that happened really early in the pandemic, I don't know if you remember this. Um, it was very interesting. So the actress, also Israeli, Gal Gadot, um, gathered different Hollywood celebrities. You see here like all the names there. And together they sang Imagine. Um, as part of like Kumbaya, we're all in this together and we'll get over it. We just need to, stay strong. It didn't take long to get backlash over that. And what I want to share with you is this is on the right. You see the original video of Gal Gadot and the celebrities, but on the left, I don't know if you're familiar with the TV series from Amazon Prime, The Boys, which is a satirical parody of the political climate in the US, and also about marketing and how marketing works in the US. So what they did is they did a parody on that video. And I'll show you both of them as a media literacy as comparison. It's really hilarious to look at it. So we'll talk a little bit about the backlash. Can we? It's gonna, no, we're not gonna be able to see it. Okay, never mind. Uh, no, it's not sharing. Okay, I'm not, we'll just go over that. But anyway, you can look online, and it's really hilarious to look how accurate they did in the parody between both of them. And so, oh, great. Now PowerPoint is stuck. Come on. No, it's tried to open again. Oh, no. Let me try to, okay, here we go. So here are, you can see different backlash online of it. So I don't know if um you see here putting Gal Gadot on the rear like car. If you've seen the movie about the differences between rich and poor, and so imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can, kind of making fun of Gal Gadot. And here, no politician can unify people in a way that the Imagine video seems to have united every single person against it. Okay, Seth Rogen so insulted I wasn't asked to be part of it. And then you can see more and more like backlash of what was going on there and how really empathic it was. Now, in the US, the election is kind of over, still looking at the race to the House of Representatives, but basically there was a lot of we versus them rhetoric. There was a lot of hate speech, rage, and we can see how the internet and social media is really creating that. So where is the empathy there in creating this kind of connection or disconnection? And this is again one of examples of people using the election and in a way that is very unempathic. And no matter what the criticism is, it's not even trying to understand. It's just criticizing and making fun of or calling like, you know, the other side, like in different ways that might see hateful, and in being a little bit less kind of, you know, bombastic, it would be, you know, not with great taste. And what's interesting here and what I want to talk about, especially like at the end, is the conflict between empathy and the attention economy that we live in. The attention economy, if you're not familiar with this term, is basically the way that social media business model is to keep people engaged as long as they can on the platform, and by using usually outrageous things that will keep you more and more in the platform itself. And so we can see, I call it like nasty is the current currency. And there is something like fake authenticity that makes it like, ooh, they're authentic, so they can say whatever they want. Like Trump, basically, rhetoric is like he's authentic, so I believe him more than Harris, who is more reserved in some places and try to be, you know, more like a regular politician. And so this nastiness online is really, again, part of the attention economy. You can see here the equation, basically, to keep people online. And if the business model of social media and other apps that we're using on our phone is to keep us as long there, to use as much as outrageous content, how can that be very empathic? So we're fighting a big fight here when we're talking about, if you believe like me that we should be more empathic to each other and we should work on it. And media literacy is one of the ways, not the only one, but one of the ways. Especially regulation should also come to play as two together. But this is a big fight to get to what I'm talking about. One other thing, if you're familiar with online disinhibition effect, um, it talks especially, and you can see here all the 6 components, why anonymity online creates this kind of more hate speech and more outrageous comments, because people don't feel that their action actually occur in real time. They don't have consequences. They don't think that people can judge them. They don't see how it's linked to them specifically if they can use bogus names or anonymity there. And so we can see that all those parts create the attention economy with the online disinhibition effect, create this like place that people feel that they can say whatever, they're not accountable to it, and more outrageous, you get more beneficial, like money-wise on the social media, and also you don't feel that you actually get consequences for it. And so I want to show you two, again, examples very different from each other. One on the left is where Elon Musk was saying, I'm up for a cage match if he does, talking to Zuckerberg, right? And so we know, especially with this election in the US, that Elon Musk used Twitter, X, really to give him profit, to like bring his political agenda and to push, and he's not anonymous at all. But also where the consequences for him, he's getting just more money for engaging people and from his other companies. But on the right, I don't know if you're familiar with this photo of Darnella Fraser. On purpose, I took this angle and not the angle of George Floyd being murdered. But think about the courage of this 17-year-old teenager to film for 8 minutes of video while the cops are there and threaten her, and she's calling them back, like, leave this person alone. And even after that, after all she has done, she felt that she didn't do enough to save him. But her courage changed a lot of things since 2020 about how police react and how police brutality and racism in the police is being enacted in the US thanks to the bravery of her sharing and knowing that it's her and she didn't hide behind a bogus account. So we can see very different ways that social media is used. I'm not trying to say, like better or worse in that sense, but for me as an empathy advocate, I definitely have some issues with the way that Elon Musk is using, Zuckerberg is using, and those platforms. Here you can see, I did it before yesterday, so you can see here the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and then last Saturday Night Live, kind of imitating it, but with the version with Harris. And beneath you have the mean tweets from Jimmy Kimmel, who's putting tweets, and here specifically is mean tweets of Donald Trump about Mitt Romney or about Obama and their reaction. So definitely Trump doesn't have any issue with anonymity here, right? But he is using the platform for his political agenda and just shouting it out without having a lot of consequences. Yes, he had the consequence that Twitter shut down his account, but he had Truth Social, and then people took from Truth Social and posted on Twitter. So in a way, it was not that, and it actually worked for his benefit that the media is censoring him from his perspective. So after this kind of very dire kind of introduction, the question is digital connection actually real? Do we think that actually we could connect online and through digital tools in a genuine, real way? So one of the examples that I love, and I talked about it in one of my chapters, is Clouds over Sidra. This is 8-minute VR, virtual reality movie by Gabo Aurora and Chris Milk that describes a day in a life. I mean, it's at 8 minutes of Sidra, who is a Palestinian refugee in Jordan. And she's walking the audience through the different places in the refugee camp. Now, especially Chris Milk claimed on different platforms, different places, that virtual reality is an empathy machine. And I want to argue that it's not. It's the exact opposite. And it's also the definition of empathy, which I'll get to it later. What it's really good at, it's to create emotions in the person who is feeling like and watching this video and create a huge amount of donation. It's very successful. So it's a donation machine. It's not an empathy machine. Because what happened there is that people for 8 minutes in their safe space can feel how devastating it is to be in a refugee camp. But after 8 minutes, they take off their like goggles and they're not there. So they can donate because they feel guilty. But I also ask in the chapter, what happened to Sidra? Was she part of the production? Because it doesn't sound like it. Did she get any of the crazy revenue that they get from this VR movie? I would doubt, but I couldn't find any evidence that besides the aid that the UN used, something came to the refugee people who were part of this like video. How did they benefit from it? So it was not really a participatory way. It was really taking advantage of like, here, let's tell their story the way that we think, the producers, the directors, and then share it with the world to get as many as donation as we can. And you can see it was very successful in that sense. It was super, super successful. And there's many more videos, VR from the UN, and in specifically in that chapter that I'm talking about, I talk about how AR, augmented reality, is much more empathic than VR. That again, you're like in a place for a certain time, you might feel emotional connection, but you take off your goggles and you're not there anymore. Where augmented reality, you're actually present. And so this is, again, the video don't work, but this is a video of Love Train with the organization Music for Change. And what they did is they took different musicians around the world who sang the song of the OJ's Love Train. And you have kids dancing there from different nations in different like outfits, like some, I don't know if to call it costumes or to call it real traditional, it's unclear, but it's really highly produced and you don't really understand what the kids are benefiting besides, you know, goofing around the camera. But again, for donation, and again, it's trying to play it, sorry. No. It's the links that are creating this mess. No. Okay, so you can see here, like, again, another example of those videos that are selecting very specific people from different nations as if they represent the whole nation, putting them together in a song of several minutes, like this is 4 minutes, for example, and kumbaya, and let's donate like for the cause. So although it creates like this empathy between nations and connection and intercultural, I again challenge, like, is it real, genuine empathy? Where is the connection here that is done? Because each one is filming their own part, and then somebody, a professional editor, is putting it together. Another example is Lego with DQ, which is based in Singapore, created this safety captain with digital empathy to teach kids to empathize with those characters there and to learn about online safety that adults think that kids should have. So the kids are interacting with those bots basically, and those different kind of algorithm, but it's not real empathy. And they're claiming that this is part of like teaching. So it might teach about online safety. It might be a good intervention, but to call it digital empathy, it's a little bit tricky because where's the empathy? The kids are empathizing with an algorithm that looks like a Lego figure, but at the end of the day, it's something that has been computerized and not really customized to what they're feeling. The worst thing, and I'll end with the negative examples here, is this, and I don't know if you're familiar with this, but on Roblox, there is a way for some game called Adopt Me, and as you play with it, you have like this pop-up, this kind of cute little whatever creature, you know, crying, please adopt me, and then the kids just press on several, and then it would charge the credit card of their parents that they put in. So you can see obviously this is a very extreme example from The Guardian, about 2,400 pounds that Roblox gave a bill to the parent because the kid was buying all those things. Not specifically from that game, but the game with Adopt Me, using the empathy of the little kid to get more money for me, it's the actual opposite, and it's horrible. Like, you abuse the soul, basically, of the little kid in order to get more revenue for your own game. And this is just, kind of giving historical. So Elisa is a software that makes you think that it's empathic to you. Now in the, with ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and all of that, this looks ancient. But if you look that it was designed in 1964, it's amazing. But again, this is make you feel that it's empathy, but it's not real empathy, because the machine is, again, the algorithm. So I don't need to get there. You got the idea here. So I took 2 slides from companies that are trying to advertise that they're going to use empathy to get you more clients. So take their services, because they know how to use empathy as the not so secret sauce to winning the hearts in digital marketing. And you can see where I'm going with it, that's not how I define empathy, right? Like, a lot of, if you go and search for digital empathy on Google, most of the things you're going to find are marketing companies who are saying, we empathize with the audience so we can get you more revenue and we can get more marketing for you. And I'm like, gee, that's not digital empathy, but that's the discourse that is happening. So people are taking the word empathy, but using it for the commercial reason that they have. So going to go backward for a second. So what is empathy? Because I'm bashing and talking about it, but what is my definition for it? So I'm going to talk about 6 elements. One is feeling, and I think that this is what most people think that empathy is, and that's where it ends. That empathizing is to feel what somebody else is feeling. So you're feeling what the other person is feeling. The person is sad, you're feeling sadness. There is also a cognitive of empathy, which is understanding. So I might not feel sadness, but I understand that this person is sad. Or I might feel that a certain feeling, and then I understand what this person, because of that feeling they're going to do such a thing. This is the accuracy of analyzing and predicting, evaluating what the other person. It's also on the cognitive part. And then there is role playing, actors basically that are saying, like, we're best in empathy because we empathize with the characters that we're doing. So that's like role playing into it. So we can see that there is those parts that most people, some just will go to the feeling, some will add also with the cognitive part, some will do the imaginative with the role playing. But I want to add 2 more elements for what I called empathy. One is caring, and that's a big argument, because some people say, no, that's not, empathic concern is not part of being empathic. And I don't know, in my values, in my ways of seeing, it's connected and it needs to be there. But you can see how some people will say, nope, it's not part of it. And the last one, which is really crucial, is what's called self-empathy. A lot of people are mistaking empathy with identifying. If you totally identify with the other person, you're not really empathizing, because you lose yourself and your sense of identity. In order for you to really empathize in a healthy way and to be caring for somebody else, you need to have a strong identity and understanding who you are, and empathize with yourself while you empathize with the other person, which, as you can imagine, is a very tricky place to be, and not easy mechanism to do. But for me, when I'm talking about empathy and digital empathy, all those 6 elements need to be, which you can see that all the previous example I gave you, none of them had those. So, okay, so I don't want to depress you. I'm personally depressed enough today. So let's go to some positive examples of how empathy can be actually used online. So, trigger warning, this is not easy content to share. And I'll go pretty quickly because I want really to hear feedback from you. So I'll try to wrap it up in like 10 minutes. This is Kyle Miles, who since then deleted this video. It was in 2011. He used the Bob Dylan kind of like putting music and putting charts that he wrote. And he wrote about why he wanted to commit suicide. But then he realized that he shouldn't, and he has 10 reasons to smile. And he challenged others to find what are their like 10 reasons to smile. And that's interesting because this video didn't get so much popular. What happened was that Ben Breedlove saw that video and shared his heart condition and his 10 reasons to smile. But 2 weeks after he posted this video, he died from the heart condition that he had as a teenager. And that became super, super popular, much more. And a lot of people thought that this is the original video. And I don't know how many youth media you did in 2011, but it's sparked a whole international phenomena of people using this to really connect with each other. So they hold the signs with disclaimers of either suicide attempt or issues that they have, problems they're facing, and then what are their 10 reasons to smile, or kind of self-encouragement way. So this is one example. And you can see here that part of the thing is when we're talking about connection and self-connection, we need to have empathic listening, active listening, and honest expression. The problem is that social media is only doing honest expression on one side. There's no empathic listening mechanism there. And the self-connection is not really working very well on social media and the way that we are mainly interacting. And I went to see the Nonviolence Communication book of Marshall Rosenberg in a way to kind of help me better understand what is the process of really genuinely connecting empathically. And that's what I want to share. So here you can see where young Brazilian kids were learning English by talking with adults in the US. So it was an intergenerational educational program, but there was also connection. So they used the connection to learn English, but there was a really genuine connection with somebody in a regular, repetitive way so that they could create a real connection on a platform, whatever it was, Skype, then Zoom, doesn't matter, but a video conferencing tool to really, really connect with somebody else online. Another example that I want to share is here, a project that I've been part of for many years. It's called Friends Forever. And here specifically, it's a group of Arab and Jewish teenagers from Israel who came to the US for 2 weeks. And I did a workshop on filmmaking, and they created a 1-minute video. So I have several of those. Again, I'm not going to share it right now, but happy to share later. And in the video, you see like how they're expressing the conflict, how they're empathizing with each other through the production. So it's a digital because they're using the cameras and digital tools and editing, but they're actually physically with each other as a group, doing like a youth media activity, like I bet that a lot of you are familiar with or took part in it as teenagers. And so my colleague, Bob van Osterhout from the Media Education Lab, and says, instead of blame and complain, transform it to learn and discern. And he's using this kind of chart in his website, Bring Truth to Fear, when he's talking about fear-based thinking, and really to move to media literacy practices to be able to go beyond the complaint and the blame and really connect with each other. And this is super important because when we're thinking about nonviolence communication, there are there's more, but there's 4 stages that you need to go through, and then the other person with you should reflect that again. So it's actually 8, and then you reverse, so it can be 16 basically. And the way it goes is you do observation. And I love this, elementary school, primary school kind of chart of think. So when you see a post online, think about it. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? So not sharing immediately, which is what we love to do when we're triggered emotionally about it. So the first is you observe what's happening. So I'm translating nonviolence communication into media literacy kind of practices. The second one is recognizing emotions. Now, yes, I'm using like inside out, but a lot of people, unlike the work of Brené Brown with Atlas of the Heart that categorize 58 emotions, even just looking at 5 emotions or 9 emotions is helpful for people to have a dialogue with each other and understand where they are and how they're feeling right now. And then thinking about the hierarchy of needs that you have right now, where is it in the hierarchy of needs? And I love Maslow, but I also learned that he took it from the Siksika nation, which is super interesting in Canada because he spent 6 months there, and that's how he was inspired to create his work when he was in his 30s. And seeing how self-actualization worked there as part of the tribe and part of the culture there. So yes, we attribute it to Maslow, but I also want to attribute like where the origin is really coming from. And then after you observe, you looked at your emotion, your needs, you really are asking a request. It can be for yourself or other people. And when the other person hears that, they come back to your observation, feeling, needs, and request, and then they're saying it. So to conclude here, what I want to share is my criticism of social media, and you can see it's not a real kind of taxonomy here. And obviously I'm missing a lot of different digital platform. But besides Zoom as a video, and not specifically Zoom, it can be Skype or any other video conferencing gives you some options, but not totally to do nonviolent communication. But all the other ones, although on Reddit, you can have back and forth, and also in an email trail, you can have back and forth. But the Oculus, Rotten Tomatoes, Spotify, even Siri or Netflix, Tinder, like how much really empathy do you have there? And is it really all of them working on a business model of the attention economy? As I said, I'll get back to it. And if we believe, or I totally believe in digital empathy, that's where we should aim, again, human values and human connection, like, should we fight this business model, or should we at least offer alternative, like Ethan Zuckerman, who was in MIT and now he's University of Massachusetts Amherst, creating an alternative social media platform that will actually encourage dialogue. Because as he says, like, the premise of social media in the early 2000s was that they're creating like dialogue and they're a place to be social media, right? But what we see now, that it's really a megaphone to just express yourself and not really seeing what happens and how you connect with it. So I'm going to end here because I talked about a lot of different things, and I'm really curious to hear your thoughts and how do you think about what I presented. Thanks.
Thank you, Yonty. Thank you so much. I have a question. I'm gonna ask it first quickly because we have plenty of time, and then we have one comment from Anne, and I'll invite other people to ask questions either by typing in the chat or raising your hands in the Zoom window. But if I could just ask you the question first, I thought it was really interesting what you finished with about the business model. And
Yeah.
at the start, when you talked about the business model for the attention economy, it seemed that this was almost like inherently non-empathic. But I think you finished by saying there's a way in which you could imagine a profitable empathic
Yes.
attention economy, or is it that it would have to be, it would have to be an
So I'm not sure
alternative?
it would be an attention, because so it would be, it can have a business model, but the business model is of membership. It's like, if you think about the way that community journalism has shifted from legacy journalism. So legacy journalism is, I'm the journalist, I know what you need to know. I'm going to report the way that I think you should be reported to. Versus community journalism that is really in dialogue with the community and create a membership, that there is a reciprocal relationship there. So that's the way that I'm thinking about it. Instead of attention economy of like, it's all about the way that you're using and kind of just having you keep being there. It's about the genuine connection, and you feel that you're benefiting from it by staying to connect with people, and you connect the way that you want to connect with the other person. And it's not about how long you're staying or how much, engagement you have with it. It's the depth of the engagement.
Thank you. Okay, so we have comments from, so I'm scrolling up, Anne, which is about nonviolent communication. Um, Anne, do you want to come in and make your comment or ask a question, or just want to leave it with what you've written in the chat?
Oh,
Hi, Anne.
hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. Yes, so I was
Yeah,
I'm just
we
so
can.
happy to see that this was the turn, that you took on this session, because I really didn't know what was going to be covered very much. And I think with lots of people, it's not feeling like a very good day. So I was really thinking I might not, this might not really support me today, but it's turned out really, I'm really glad. And I think this last point about the business model, because I did some journalism as well, going over to membership is just so important. Um, I did some university journalism courses a while back for the pandemic, and we had a speaker from America about the harms of for-profit journalism, and obviously it's just gone so far. It's infotainment,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
just a big thank you for this is really helpful, really helpful.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comment. So in Chicago, where I live, that's the community journalism is very, very big. And yes, there is some legacy journalism like the Chicago Tribune, but it's having less and less profit, and they're closing more and more parts of like the Chicago Tribune, while other community journalism is thriving. And Chicago really, I have a lot of people who are coming from around the world to look at this journalism kind of model because it is more empathic, right? And when you talk about empathy, you cannot not go to Rogerian dialogue and to Marshall Rosenberg. So it's like, it's a must, basically. So those are the practices that I would like definitely to see. And especially with, I don't think, I'm not personally, I'm not happy with the results of the election, but that's my own personal thing. But whatever results would have been, the US, like a lot of other countries, are divided and polarized. I'm actually here in Strasbourg in the European Parliament giving a talk tomorrow about the depolarization initiative that we did using nonviolence communication and media literacy in Rhode Island. It's called Courageous RI. And so there are ways to use media literacy, and there are ways to use communication, nonviolent communication, that are working. And there's a lot of people here that are as well. Yes, there's different threats to democracy and to the way that we're connecting as human beings, but there are some bright side that I'm trying to remind myself, especially today, that we can keep the good fight.
Thank you, especially for that grain of hope. We have a new message. Let me just scroll down to it.
Yes, it's courageousri.com.
Thank you. While you're answering the next question, I'll
Okay.
grab that and link it in the chat. Sean, over to you.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, thank you for this talk. Is really, really enlightening. And I'm based here in Rhode Island, and I really love the work of the Media Education Lab. My question is, I'm a former community news reporter and now like a communications professional for a research organization based here at the University of Rhode Island. And it feels like, in order to get to different audiences, it's sort of obligatory that we have to use social media. But my instinct is I don't want to post information about our program on social media because it's putting people potentially into these unempathetic spaces. My question is how have you gone about those types of conversations with colleagues, and how would you suggest going about those conversations?
So I'm on specific social media that I choose to be in. So I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on X. Those are the platforms that I choose to be there. And there's a lot of issues with X. It's not like it's ethically so much higher than Facebook or something like that. But that's where I have my community. That's where I'm communicating, and I choose how to communicate. So there is a theory that's called uh, dialogical theory of PR by Kent and forgot the second person name. And and that theory is talking about how to communicate in an empathic way, taking the risk as a company, because you're talking as a consultant, basically, or communication professional, right? So like as a PR person, how do you communicate in a way that is genuine, not just to try to get like the money from the people or from the audience, but to see that you're there, you're present, and the people there as a participatory, again, it's all about participatory way of genuinely being in the community, talking eye to eye, and the community feel trust and want to be with you. Thank you, Julian, for like keeping putting up this. I'm throwing names and thank you. So what I'm saying is, it's not about the platform. It's not like there's one platform that is better than the other. They're all using the same business model, pretty much. It's where people feel comfortable, feel safe, and feel that their value and they're not being used for like a profit. And it's part of a discussion to have and to agree and how, yes, Kenton Taylor, thank you. Um, so so I know it's not exactly like, the answer, like how, but it's about the practice, not the platform, basically, what I'm saying.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions or comments? Again, either in the chat or so where to from here, says Arn. Wow. Okay.
So, I mean, what I'm saying is like initiative like in University of Amherst and in Bournemouth, you have like your center that you can also think about that. Like how should digital, not specifically social media, but how digital communication should look like, right? Because we need to show an example. We need to create a prototype. Like it's not going to come out of nowhere. So especially students, graduate students, like you have a place, an amazing place that you can practice, you can do a lab, you can like think about like how do you have a genuine dialogue? When did you feel like with synergy? If you know the concept of synergy, that when you're working with a group in an amazing synergy, it's like amazing flow. And you feel so great that every time that you have a group that doesn't work like this, you're like, oh, it's not really working well. Because you have this experience of like this amazing synergy with the other group members that you want all the time to come back to this kind of like teamwork. So it's the same thing. How do you create this kind of experience that you feel that there is genuinely something that is happening? And how can you do it in a digital way, remote way, because not everybody will be in person? Uh, and so it's something to develop, something to theorize about, something to think. And again, there's a lot of different theories about how to use empathy. You have the informational processing, social information processing theory of Joseph's. And he talked about the difference between understanding interpersonal cues and understanding like cues on text and emails and now like on social media with emojis. And so there are theories there that are talking about this, that are theorizing, that are trying to understand. So that's where we should go. People who are practitioners should practice and try to develop that. The researchers should research. The theorists should theorize and have more things. So the discourse will grow to see that it's not, attention economy is not the only model that exists and that people are thriving. That's how community journalism is thriving in Chicago. Because of that, there was a lot of people that came together, not necessarily at the same place at the same time, but working on the shoulders of giants, kind of, or standing on the shoulders of giants, right? So that's where we should go. Like, if you're interested in this kind of thing, find what is your expertise that you can contribute to this fight to bring to more empathic connection in the digital world.
Thank you. So I guess it sounds like, I don't want to paraphrase you too simplistically, but it sounds like, because being in the UK today, looking at the situation in the States, you could quite easily draw this as a case study of the absolute collapse of empathy, in the sense that, things became so polarized, and those that were anti-Trump were failing to empathize with why um, particular sections of American society might see him as their kind of figurehead. And then, of course, it's not difficult to say why people who voted for Trump might be seen as non-empathic towards women, migrants, etc. But it sounds as though you're saying like the kind of attention economy algorithm is a distortion in a sense. It's not that humans lack empathy, and social media has exposed that, incredibly visibly. It seems as though you're saying that actually it's not an accurate reflection of human beings' empathic capabilities. So
Yeah.
it's a kind of hopeful theory that you have in that sense.
Yeah, because I mean, I have tons of different emotions about the elections, right? But at the end of the day, when you go to like a Thanksgiving dinner and stuff, you have different people. And I even met like family members who are like supportive of like Trump. And I really sat and tried to like have a decent dialogue, which I did have with different conspiracy theories and stuff. And you see that there's a lot of people that, are in good relationship with the neighbors. When it comes to politics, it's much more like an issue, but eventually people want to connect. And part, I think, of the vote for Trump is people feeling that the current democratic government is not listening to them and their condition have been worse. I'm not sure if that's factually correct, but at the end of the day, there is a lack of empathy, as you said, of both sides, and trying to understand what and where we should go. Um,
Thank you. So Arda asks, what would be, these are big questions you've got here. How do you describe your vision for the ideal world of digital empathy? What would it look like?
Well, I mean, I really this example of Jewish and Arab kids that I keep working, and I've more work to come in the next few years with, especially in the region that is in flames, and you cannot talk to Palestinians about Israelis or Israelis about Palestinians. But I do have hope that eventually things will calm down, and then there'll need to be a lot of reconciliation and build of peace building. Um, and people will need to be trained in a nonviolence communication and in empathy to bring that, because we're human being. And especially like, for example, in the Middle East, people live there. It's not like one will be erased and then the other can take over. So how do you work on that? Like, and you can see examples of Northern Ireland. It's not like everybody's kumbaya in Northern Ireland and everybody loves everybody. But it's very different than it was in the 90s. And you have many other examples. I'm just taking something that is maybe a little bit closer to home, but um, so that's how I look at like those exchange from the Brazilian kids with the older Americans. Like, how can we create, and not just as a language exchange program, how can we create genuine meetings that can be done also online? Can we do a nonviolence communication training online? There's a lot of in person, but can we do something that will help people to feel more connected in a way that they don't feel that they've been taken advantage of?
Thank you. Um, so we have 5 minutes left. So we have time for one more. If anybody has another question or comment, or would
Thank
anyone would
you,
like to
Ida.
share any work that they're doing? Oh, here we are. Oh no, I
Can
thought,
I
yeah, sure.
can I just follow up on that?
Yeah.
So you talk about the role of community journalism. Um, what do you mean by community journalism? Is it local journalism or is it some sort of hyper local or some sort of very small, journalism venture by small groups of people in a local neighborhood? And I mean, there are models with that, but not all of them work.
So if you want, you can look at the example called Black Club Chicago.
Mhm.
Um, and their model that has been super successful, Block Club Chicago .com, I think, um, is they have neighborhoods. Chicago is the city of neighborhoods, and you can subscribe to a specific neighborhood, and you have a specific reporter in the neighborhood that lives in the neighborhood. Uh, and so the idea is that the person knows the readers can approach this person either online or in person, but they're feeling that they're, asking for things to be like covered, stories that are hyper localized, as you said. And it's not about national stories. It's about local story. What happened in my neighborhood? Now, because Chicago is Chicago with so many 77 neighborhoods, I think, that are pretty big. It's really, if you look at it, it has a lot of different, thank you, Julian, a lot of different stories that are coming from Chicago. It's not just, one small kind of town. So that's where Chicago differ from a lot of rural journalism efforts that are trying now to put into rural communities that don't have, that are kind of like news deserts. So this is specifically a very, as you said, hyper localized, that there is a reporter, that people know who this reporter is, that is part of the community. So it feels that it's like helpful for the community. I hope that I answer your question.
Yeah, can I one more minute for you, but
Sure.
can we bring it to some sort of national or global affairs politics, because we need to talk about, say, election, like this morning, or
Mhm.
global affairs, like a lot of things that you mentioned in the early part of your presentation.
What's the question?
Can you bring this sort of small community journalism into global community?
So
What
then
do
it
you
might not
think?
be exactly journalism. So
Yeah,
for
I
the
mean,
journalism
yeah.
itself, for community journalism to work, it needs to be community based, right? So if you talk about something outside that it's not relevant to the community, then it's a different kind of, and that's why I gave an example of community journalism. But what I'm talking about is about different communication, intercultural communication, different dialogues between people that might not have the same interest, like depolarization, interventions. So it's not specifically journalism, but it is something that would help us to really understand and who is the other person, like on the other side of the screen, and how can we communicate with them. So we can learn lessons from community journalism, but it's not necessarily specifically community journalism that will bring us
Mhm,
exactly there.
mhm.